Now, why are we replacing Terminal D? One of the reasons, and for those of you who've been in Terminal D in the last few years, compared to a lot of other major terminals around the United States, such as LAX and some of the new terminals at JFK and at some other major airports, and particularly major international airports abroad, it's up par for a world-class city such as Houston. And another reason is that gate capacity. Right now, when the Airbus 380 is not parked at Terminal D, we have 7 wide-body gates. When the 380 is parked there, we only have 6 gates. But as you've been hearing lately, we've had a lot of new entrants. We've had Air China recently. We've had Turkish. In the next couple months, we're going to have Korean Airlines arriving. In addition, we're currently in talks with 2 of our existing carriers who want to bring A380s to Terminal D. And we also in the pipeline, we have several other carriers that we're talking to who want to come to Intercontinental in the next 24 or so months. So we're heavily gate constrained right now, and if there's an early or late arrival of an aircraft, we're out of luck. In addition, not only have the foreign flag carriers been expanding, but United Airlines is aggressively expanding their international operations, and they need room to grow. So it's a mutual need for all parties at the airport to grow, particularly in the area of wide-body international flights. One other point about Terminal D is originally, up until 2005, the FIS was in Terminal D. We have an entire level in Terminal D that's unused right now. We heat it, we cool it, but it's unused. We've had quite a few consultants come in and also concession planners who come in, and we try to figure out how to reuse that space, but because of configuration of the building, which is very complex, there's no good use for that space. So, over the last few years, as I mentioned, starting in roughly about 2010, actually a little bit before that, there was a concept we call refresh the building, and that's what Mario alluded to when he said to put new carpeting, painting, do some modifications. This was on Mario's desk when he arrived at the Houston Airport System. One of the problems with this concept is what I mentioned a few minutes ago. We're gaining new carriers and need additional gate capacity, and this program did not allow that. So Mario then directed us to look at, could we refurbish the existing building and add additional gate capacity? We call that the renovate project. We looked at adding additional gates and a pier. And it came out, the price for this was pretty high, but we still had that unused floor that we couldn't find a good use for that unused level of the building. So then he asked us, he said, well, how much would it cost to completely rebuild a building? So that was the next program we looked at, which we would call the rebuild program. And the cost for actually to renovate and rebuild were only a few $1 million different. They were very close. But then there were still other issues going on, because one problem we have with Terminal D is that it's a very peaky terminal. By peaky, I mean the terminal's at capacity from roughly noon to 6 p.m. The other hours of the day, the terminal is pretty much a ghost town. The reason for that is that's the time period when European and Middle Eastern flights arrive and depart. That's our peak. And so a lot of the terminal goes unused to other roughly 18 hours out the day. So one idea we had, and one idea was recommended by our master planning consultants, is that if we can get other carriers to use a terminal, that will help us financially in the terminal. It will help the concession program and also help our financial numbers for the terminal. So then we looked at a concept of building a terminal outside of the core area. We call it the East Terminal because it would have been constructed half a mile east of the existing terminal complex. And as originally envisioned, it would have had our foreign flag carriers and also our domestic carriers. While the foreign flag carriers liked this program, the domestic carriers did not. A couple of the key domestic carriers completely refused to consider this option. In addition, there was a problem for our major hub carrier, United, because they connect to a lot of the international flights. So it was a problem for them and their partners. So fortunately for us, around that same time, they came to the table, United came to the table, and they have needs for additional wide-body gates too. And they said, well, what if we gave you guys C North, the northern pier of Terminal C, to help with your phase-in, but also it would help them get additional wide-body gates, which they need right now. what they have going on now, they have a lot of new aircraft coming in, 787s, which are replacing 767s, but 787s have 30-foot longer wingspans. They don't fit into the existing gates. So there were mutual needs that would help all parties, the foreign flight carriers, United, and us. So that led us to the terminal program we're going to talk about today, which we call the new International Terminal Program. This is our terminal complex today. Sorry. Right now we have, I thought it was laser on here, there's not. Right now we have Terminal D in the east. We have Terminal C sort of in the middle of the screen, and we have Terminal E to the south. This program looks at taking the site that Terminal D and Terminal C North are now on and constructing a completely new terminal. Well, I should say mostly new terminal. One of the things we're looking to do possibly is to use a portion of the existing C North pier and renovate and expand it. But this program would give us 15 international gates, including 4 380 gates. And to the west, you see the United's new terminal B North, Phase 2. This is just a rendering of B North Phase 2. They're going to design so the final product will look slightly different than what you see on the screen. But for Terminal D and C North, this is the concept we have right now. Now let me go into our idea of how to accomplish this. Let me go into phase in a little bit as we currently envision it. But one reason we're having this session also is to get input from the industry, because a lot of people in this room build terminals every day around the world. And so we're not the experts. We build terminals every decade or so, if that. So we're looking for input from the experts in the room before we release an RFQ. So this is where we're at today. We have Terminal D, as I mentioned. Right now, when the 380 is on the ground, we have 6 wide-body gates. The way we envision phase 1 of construction, we would start modifying C North and also start constructing the core of the new terminal just north of what we call a C link, the link between Terminal D and Terminal C. Then we would modify the remainder of C North. Then we would start rebuilding the curve front in front of the new terminal building. We have our new curve front. We then would rebuild the eastern part of Terminal D. Rebuild the eastern part of the ticket hall for Terminal D. And one other thing we're doing in this project, we're setting back Terminal D so we can add additional lanes in the curve front. So that's one other thing we're doing in this program. And then we have the completed facility. This new facility, and Mario will go into this in more detail in a few minutes, would have much larger concession program, particularly in areas of duty-free. Much larger clubs. We would probably have about 4 times the club space we have today, because that's one complaint of some of our major foreign flight carriers, is that compared to other major airports, we're grossly undersized in terms of clubs. One of our major carriers has requested 10,000 square foot of space, which is, we definitely can't provide that today in our current building. This is our preliminary timeline for 2014. We're still refining this, and also we're looking for input from the industry on the project, including we're even open to input because we haven't finalized our delivery methods. So we're open to comments and input. And at the end of this presentation, you're going to see some email address that you can send us comments or suggestions at the email address. In addition, there's boards on each side of the room with an email address you can send comments to. But right now, what we're looking to do, right now there's a program definition document in development, which will be completed in May. This will have preliminary space programming for the terminal and other information we've gathered from the carriers. This will be a pretty detailed document with quite a few specifications that we want in it. And while we will allow the designer to deviate from the document to a certain degree, we don't want them to deviate too far from the document. When we release an RFQ, we will have a summary of this document packaged with the RFQ. Then we will make a selection. We will release RFQ. We'll do interviews. We'll select a team that will go to council for our request for council action, which is our city council approval process. And then our goal is we would like to start design on the project by mid to late summer. That's our goal. We would like also for construction to start possibly by around the middle of next year, if possible. Our current completion date, based on our internal analysis, we would like right now we're showing a completion date for the entire facility of 2021, but if that could be moved up, we would like that moved up. If the selected designer and construction firms can improve on that, we're open to that. But one thing that we have to maintain is we have to maintain our gate numbers that we currently have at a minimum, if not increase them. Because as I mentioned, we've had, in the last few years, we've had at least one or two new carriers coming in every year. And so that's a problem. So we need to keep our gates open as much as possible. And now Mario's going to come back and talk about his vision and what he's looking for in the selected firms.
Thank you, Jarrett. When we talk about architecture and we talk about international terminals in particular, many of you and many people start with the structure itself, the sculpture, the piece of work. And there's nothing wrong with that, of course. And if you want to build a pretty building, that's fine. And we'd like a pretty building. But what we really want to focus on is what happens inside the building. And there are some key things that I really would want you to take away as you start thinking about how you're going to approach this design effort. Number one is intuitive navigation. We have so many signs in the international terminal today that you need signs to tell you where the signs are to tell you where to go. And that's a problem. So, and yet I can point to at least two examples for you of terminal buildings around the world in the United States where you don't need that kind of signage. Munich is one. It's intuitive. You get off your plane, you get out at the gate, and you just start walking, and you kind of don't really pay attention to signs, but somehow you get to where you want to go. And the other one that I thought was creative was Dallas Love Field, where, again, you get out off the plane, and somehow the space that you're walking through starts to narrow down. It's kind of like you're being herded in a different direction. You don't feel it. You don't sense it. But it acts on you, and it's just another intuitive way of avoiding signs and get you to where you want to go. The next is a sense of place. And a lot of people talk about this, but I really think that it's important for Houston. To the extent that you can use design, to the extent that you can use form, finishes, space to convey to someone that gets off an airplane that they have arrived in Houston. Know that they are not in Chicago or San Francisco or Los Angeles or Miami or Atlanta, but they're in Houston. They're not even in Dallas. They're in Houston. They know they're in the state of Texas, but they're in Houston. That's important. That's key. It's something that we would very, very much want. A public space. Third, really want to have a public space, some space within this terminal where passengers can really come to, where they can participate in everything from listening to a concert to shopping to dining, sufficient space, high ceilings perhaps, volume of space that really can form the crux, the center of mass of this building, that people know that that's the place to go to. But then, as differentiated from it, quiet space. So those who really want to get away from the excitement of a public space and everything that goes with it, can, if they want to sit down, if they just want some downtime because of a long connection, they can do so as well. And then a place that recognizes that there are going to be many, many cultures that are going to use this facility. Houston, we say time and time again, is probably one of the most, it is the most today, the most diverse city, major metropolitan city in the United States. Houston is what many major cities in 20, 25 years will look like. And we need to accept that. We need to acknowledge that. We need to provide for the cultures that will use this facility in time. One of the, and along with that, of course, we have, and these are just some examples, but also light. Light's important for two reasons. One is, even with LEDs, we know we have LEDs today, and you can lower the cost of electricity by using LEDs, and of course you can extend the lifetime of the bulbs, but I don't want bulbs. Nothing beats natural sunlight. The sense of being kind of in the facility, as almost one of the ideas of being in a garden, in an enclosed space with light, and yet it feels comfortable because there's light there. It's natural. It feels right. It feels natural. And along with that, of course, is one of my pet peeves is bathrooms. Bathrooms that are right-sized for both men and women. I think it's called potty parity these days, something like that. But that also has light. There's something just, I don't know, for those of you that camp, maybe many of you don't, but if you go into in a bathroom in the woods, and there is light in that bathroom, it makes a whole lot of difference. Is that not right? That's right. Well, why not bring that concept into a terminal building? Why is it that bathrooms always are stuck in a closet somewhere, in dark space? Space where you have to have voluminous transfer of air, where you try to brighten it up as much as you can. You know, those kinds of bathrooms in restaurants are okay. In hotels, they're okay. In public spaces where there's not a lot of volume moving through them. But when you come to airports and you have that high volume of passengers day in, day out, light makes a difference. And so I please ask you to really consider light in public spaces. And then, of course, some special features. Now, this is an international terminal. You know, when, as some of you, I'm sure, do as you travel around the world, you realize that because of today's air traffic management system or security or just immigration policies, there are going to be times when passengers arrive and they've got long layovers. And they really don't want to sit down in a public space. They don't really want quiet space. They really would like to take a shower. They really would like to have a massage. They would like a space that they can pamper themselves. And when you think about the number of first class, business class seats that are sold every day in the city, on all of the major foreign flag and domestic carriers traveling international, you start to get a sense for the demand for these types of services, spa, showers, those kinds of facilities that really need to be provided, some space that needs to be provided for those type of things. What I'd like to also talk to you about, and before I get to minority and women business, and Jared mentioned it a little bit, is that we're still open to the procurement method for this project. We definitely have ruled out design, bid, build. Not doing it. Don't really have the staff to actually manage and for us to hold each one of these contracts, for us to do all the coordination of the construction and the design. And so we are looking at two possibilities now, but if you have more, we're certainly welcome to entertain. One is, of course, design build. How would that work? And the other one is, of course, design CM at risk, where we launch the design team and then we bring on board CM at risk and everybody works together so that as design packages are completed, the CM at risk has had input and, of course, is ready with those packages to get out on the street.